Hey everyone, back again with some more Motorcraft carburetor modifications. This time we are talking about the power valve circuit. So the power valve or economizer circuit is basically the low vacuum, wide open throttle fuel enrichment circuit. It runs off a small vacuum valve that fits in right here and looks like this little guy here. And let me show you kind of how this works and what I do a little bit differently. So the stock power valve looks like this. They have a small number on them somewhere. This one may or may not. It's probably, since it's stock, a 7.5. That means when the engine goes below 7.5 inches of vacuum, so at wide open throttle, the engine is going to be at about 0 or maybe 1 to 2 inches of vacuum, depending on how efficient your setup is, how big your carburetor is, things like that. But basically, low vacuum equals high high load towards wide open throttle. The power valve's job is to basically add fuel in those conditions. How it does that, again, is with under low vacuum situations, this circuit opens up and adds fuel through, see if we can get a close up here, these two passages. These are called power valve channel restrictors. And stock, they have a very small brass tube molded in, and then that tube is drilled to a size by the factory to suit the engine. So the power valve itself is the when the fuel happens. This channel restrictor is the how much fuel happens. And so from the factory, this is typically a fairly large opening and is typically very, very rich when the power valve circuit is open. I've seen them, especially when we're running these carburetors, like this model would be a 1.14 size, about 300 CFM, that came off of something like a low power 289 or 302 engine. So this is also a very good size for like a mild V6 engine, um, or even a mild performance V6 engine, something like a Buick Oddfire with a cam per se. But these passages basically are fairly large from the factory, and they they run very, very rich on the power valve. And it's one of the causes of poor mileage in general with carburetors, is because people run them with tall gearing, and they drive around trying to do like 1500 RPM, but they're only running 5 inches of manifold vacuum. And so the power valve circuit's open all the time, just dumping fuel in the engine. Um, well, this modification helps that because we can now, I basically go in and drill out the factory uh, passages and tap them so that I can use one of these small custom jets. I'm hoping this is focusing, but basically this is a small custom jet with a hole, I hope you can see that, in the end. And so now with these custom jets, they are made from basically just brass set screws, and then I can build a jet kit like this. So this half of the jet kit is main jets for the carburetor. This part is all power valve jetting now. So we can not only change the when, but the how much fuel happens. And so this gives a Motorcraft carburetor, I think, one of the last missing pieces, in that we can really tune wide open throttle and high load throttle air fuel mixture to be much more crisp. Instead of like with the factory, you'll be seeing 10s or 11 to 1. Typically, they run very, very fat on the power valve. we can bring that back to like 12 to 1, 12.5 to 1. And that basically makes these feel a lot more crisp on the top end, and I think gives them quite a lot more power. Say on power valve above 2000, 3000 RPM, it really makes them feel a lot more crisp. So this is a modification at this time that I have to do myself. You could totally feel free to copy this. It's a little bit of a exercise in trying to figure out how to do everything. I would prefer at this point in time only to do it on new carburetors, but it would work on an old carburetor. It's just that most of the old carburetors I see these days are pretty worn out, and so they require quite a bit of love. These reproductions now are only running about $100, and honestly, they're as good as anything I'm seeing coming out of, in for a rebuild situation. So this modification, along with the Holly jet conversion, makes these far, far, far more tunable, and I highly suggest using basically a wideband O2 meter and a vacuum gauge full time in the vehicle to help tune these. And that, in my opinion, combined with my off-road carb kit, pretty much makes this. I'm going to call it something like analog fuel injection. In my opinion, it removes all but the last little bit of self-tuning to the fuel injection that does automatically. But as far as physical fuel delivery to the vehicle or to the engine, I've run these carburetors on everything from my personal Jeep when I developed it a long time ago, some of these modifications, to rock buggies and things like that. And these will run far, far past when you don't have oil pressure and things like that. It really is a big difference in off-road performance. And now with this power valve jet conversion, it just adds that little icing on the top for tuning and really makes these things wonderful. Thanks for watching, guys.